Riley had always been the quiet one, the kid who faded into the background. At 16, they felt like a ghost in their own life. The divorce had hit hard, parents splitting, each two caught up in their own battles to notice Riley slipping away. School was a blur of hallways and whispers, where no one seemed to care if they showed up or not. They'd stopped trying to make friends, stopped raising their hand, stopped believing they mattered. Home wasn't much better. Just a small house filled with tents, silences and unpacked boxes. Riley spent hours in their room, scrolling endlessly. The world outside feeling too big, too loud. They weren't angry, not really. Just empty, like nothing they did could fill the hole inside. They'd walk alone sometimes, cutting through the woods behind town to avoid everyone. The trees a kind of shield. One chilly afternoon, deep in the pines, they heard a sound, sharp, like a cry. Then gone. Riley froze, thinking it was nothing, but it came again, weaker, desperate. They pushed through the brush, heart thudding, and saw it. A fox, small and trembling, its reddish fur streaked with dirt. One leg was caught in a tangle of roots, blood matting its side, its amber eyes wide with panic. Riley stepped back, unsure. Wild animals weren't their thing, and they didn't know the first thing about helping one. The fox whimpered, struggling, then stilled, staring right at them. Something in that look, fear mixed with a stubborn will to live, hit Riley hard. They'd felt invisible for so long, but this creature saw them, needed them. They could have walked away, told someone else, but the idea of leaving it there twisted their gut. Kneeling slowly, they spoke low, not sure if it helped, just wanting the fox to know they weren't a threat. It didn't snap or bolt, just watched, shaking. Riley worked the roots free, hands clumsy but gentle, and lifted the fox, light as air, its warmth seeping through their jacket. They carried it home, sneaking through the back door, to avoid questions, and set it on a pile of towels in their room. The fox curled up, eyes half closed, still alive. Riley called it Ember, maybe for the spark in its gaze, like a fire refusing to go out. They didn't know what they were doing, didn't know how to fix a wild thing, didn't even know how to fix themselves. Their life was a mess, school a distant hum, their parents barely noticing they existed. They'd never been good at anything, not really, and the thought of failing this fox scared them. But Ember's breathing, shallow but steady, was a pull they couldn't ignore. They grabbed their phone, searching for how to help an injured animal, scrolling past warnings about wildlife and disease. Loneliness had been their world for so long. Nobody to talk to, nobody who cared. But here was something real, something counting on them. They didn't trust themselves to get it right, didn't think they were enough. Yet Ember's eyes stayed on them, trusting when they couldn't. Riley decided to try, just for now, to keep this fox alive. They had no clue that choice would light a path they'd never seen coming. If Riley's loneliness and Ember's fragile spark got under your skin, if you've ever felt like you didn't belong, hit the like button now. It's a shout out to everyone searching for their place, just like Riley's starting to. Subscribe to join a community that believes in new starts, where stories like this show there's always something worth saving. Stick around to see how a fox changes everything. You won't want to miss it. What's made you feel seen when you felt alone? Share in the comments. Riley woke to the soft rustle of Ember moving in the makeshift den they'd built from a cardboard box and old towels. The fox was still weak, her injured leg tucked close, but her amber eyes followed Riley with a wary trust that hadn't been there the first day. Riley's room, once a cave for hiding from the world, now felt alive with purpose, even if it was just keeping this wild thing breathing. The divorce had left them adrift. Parents too wrapped up in their own fights to see Riley fading. School a maze of faces that didn't care. They'd stopped trying to fit in, stopped believing they could be anything but invisible. But Ember needed them, and that need was a tether pulling them out of the fog. Riley spent hours online, reading about foxes, how to feed them, how to clean wounds without causing stress. They'd sneak scraps from the fridge, bits of chicken or egg, and mash them into something Ember could manage. The fox was picky at first, sniffing and turning away. But Riley learned patience, sitting still until she took a bite. Each nibble felt like a victory, a sign they weren't screwing this up. They'd talk to her, quiet and halting, about dumb stuff, homework, the woods, how nobody at school got them. Ember's ears would flick, like she was listening, and Riley felt a warmth they hadn't known in months, maybe years. It wasn't like talking to people where every word felt judged. With Ember, they could just be. They started noticing things about her, how she'd curl her tail tight when scared, how her nose twitched at new smells. She was tough, fighting to heal despite the pain, and Riley saw a bit of themselves in that, the part that hadn't given up completely, even when they wanted to. They'd clean her wound daily, hands steadying as they got the hang of it, and Ember stopped flinching, letting them touch her without pulling back. That trust hit Riley hard. Nobody had ever leaned on them like this. Not their parents, not their old friends who'd faded away. But not everyone saw it their way. A neighbor, an older guy who'd spotted Riley carrying supplies, stopped them one day, his voice sharp. Said they were foolish messing with a wild animal, wasting time when they should be at school, acting normal. He'd heard about the fox, called it a pest, said Riley couldn't save it, couldn't save anything. His words cut deep, echoing the doubts Riley already carried. Maybe they were useless, maybe this was all a mistake. They wanted to snap back, but the fight drained out of them, leaving only a familiar ache. They trudged home, Ember's box waiting in the corner, and sat there, staring. The fox nudged the towel's edge, trying to stand, her leg wobbling but stronger. Riley watched, throat tight. Ember didn't care about the neighbor's words, didn't care if Riley was normal. She just kept trying, and that stubbornness stirred something. Riley thought about their own life, how they'd stopped trying after the divorce, how they'd let loneliness win. They'd never been good at anything, not really, but Ember wasn't giving up, so why should they? They started sketching her, pencil scratching paper, capturing her sharp ears, her quiet fire. It wasn't much, just lines and shadows, but it felt like a step, like they were making something real. They kept up the care, more food, fresh bandages, a bigger box as Ember grew steadier. One night, she stood on her own, wobbling but upright, and Riley laughed, a sound that echoed in the empty house. They didn't know if they could save her, didn't know if they could save themselves. The neighbor's voice lingered, a warning they might fail, but Ember's trust, her slow steps toward them, pushed it back. Riley wasn't ready to face the world, not yet, but they were ready to keep going for her. They'd sneak out to the woods again, let her smell the air, her nose lifting like she remembered. Freedom? Each small win built something in Riley, not confidence, but a kind of grit, a reason to show up. Ember was more than a fox now. She was a mirror, showing them they could fight too, even if they didn't know where it led. Riley's room had become a sanctuary, not just for Ember, but for them too. The fox was stronger now, her leg healing, her reddish fur glinting as she moved with cautious grace. Riley had poured everything into her care, hours researching, sketching her sharp features, talking to her about the loneliness that still clung like damp air. They'd built a fragile trust, Ember no longer shying from their touch, her amber eyes steady when they offered food. But Riley knew this couldn't last forever. Ember was wild, meant for the woods, not a box in a teen's room. The thought of letting her go twisted their gut, not because they wanted to keep her caged, but because she'd become their anchor, the one thing that made them feel real. They'd been invisible so long, lost. In the wake of their parents' divorce, ignored at school, that Ember's need for them had been a lifeline. Now they faced a choice: release her and risk losing that purpose, or hold on and risk failing her. They'd read enough to know foxes didn't belong indoors, but every step toward setting her free felt like stepping off a cliff. One morning, they took Ember to the edge of the woods, her makeshift leash loose, just to test her strength. She sniffed the air, ears twitching, but stayed close. Like she wasn't ready either. A hiker passed by, an older woman with a badge from a wildlife group, and noticed Ember's careful steps. She asked questions, how Riley had nursed her, how she'd healed. Riley mumbled answers, expecting judgment, but the woman's eyes lit up. She said Ember's recovery was remarkable, that Riley had a gift, a knack for understanding animals most people missed. She mentioned her group, a small team that rehabbed wildlife, and said they needed help, someone with Riley's patience. Riley froze. They weren't special, weren't good at anything, not like the kids at school with their grades or sports. The woman handed them a card, saying to think about it, but Riley's mind was already spinning. They looked at Ember, who'd curled up by their feet, and saw it. The fox hadn't just survived. She'd thrived because of them. Then came the twist. The hiker had shared a photo of Ember online, tagging the group's page, and it spread. Locals commented, amazed a teen had saved a fox, calling it a story of hope. A teacher from school messaged one Riley barely knew, asking to share it with a conservation club. Suddenly, people who'd never noticed them were paying attention, saying Riley had done something real. They learned Ember's injury wasn't random. She'd likely fled a trap, part of a bigger issue with illegal snares in the area. The wildlife group was fighting it, and Riley's work with Ember tied straight to their cause. They could join, learn to rehab more animals, maybe even help stop the traps. The idea lit something in Riley, but fear surged too. They'd failed before, failed to keep their family together, failed to fit in. What if they let these people down? Let Ember down? The neighbors' words echoed, calling their efforts pointless. But Ember nudged their hand, her nose cool and sure. That night, Riley sat with her, sketching her silhouette against a moonlit tree. The card from the group lay on their desk, a door they could open or ignore. They thought of Ember's fight, how she'd stood despite pain, how she'd trusted them when they didn't trust themselves. They didn't feel ready, didn't feel enough. But Ember hadn't waited to be perfect. She just kept going. Riley picked up the card, heart racing, and decided to call. It wasn't about being fearless. It was about showing up for Ember, for the animals still out there, for the part of them that wanted to be seen. The fox stretched, her eyes catching the light, and Riley felt it, a
purpose, small but growing, that could carry them further. They dared. Riley stood in the where they'd first seen her. The fox's reddish fur gagging the morning light as she sniffed the grass, her leg now strong.
The woods felt different, a place to hide but a home for something that changed since Ember's recovery sparked. They joined the wildlife group, nervous at first, expecting to miss
up to be the kid nobody noticed, but they hadn't. They'd learned fast how to handle injured birds, mend small mammals, spot signs of snares, and their hands, once shaky, grew steady. The group's leader called Riley a natural, saying their patience, the kind that saved Ember, was rare. Locals knew their name now, not as the quiet teen from a broken home, but as the one who brought animals back from the edge. School wasn't a maze anymore. Riley joined the conservation club, shared ideas about protecting the woods, and found kids who listened, who cared. Even their parents, once distant, started showing up, asking about Ember, coming to a group event, their voices softer, like they saw Riley for the first time. The loneliness that had choked them, born from divorce, from feeling invisible, hadn't vanished, but it didn't own them now. Ember had shown them they could be more, and the group gave them a place to prove it. They'd led workshops, teaching others how to spot traps, their voice so clear, not trembling like it used to. A local paper ran a story, Teen Saves Fox, Sparks Change, and Riley cringed at the attention but felt a quiet pride when strangers thanked them, saying it inspired them to care. The group had grown too, more volunteers, a new rehab pen funded by donations after Ember's story spread online. Riley helped build it, hammering posts beside people who'd become friends, their laughter filling the air. They didn't need to be loud or perfect, they just needed to show up, and that was enough. One evening, they brought Ember back to the woods for the last time. The fox was ready, wild again, her eyes flicking to the trees, her body humming with instinct. Riley knelt, unclipping the leash they'd used for safety, their chest tight. Letting go wasn't easy. Ember had been their spark, their mirror, the one who'd seen them when no one else did. But keeping her wasn't right. She belonged out here, free. They whispered a thank you, not for the world to hear, just for her, for showing them they weren't nothing. Ember paused, looking back, her gaze steady, then darted into the brush, a flash of red gone in seconds. Riley stood there, alone but not empty, the ache of her leaving mixed with something new. Peace, maybe, or purpose. Back home, their room held sketches of Ember, pinned above a desk now cluttered with wildlife books and group plans. They'd started drawing again, not just foxes but owls, rabbits, moments from the rehab pen, each line a piece of the life they were building. The divorce still stung, school wasn't perfect, but Riley didn't feel invisible anymore. They had people now, teammates, mentors, even their parents trying harder. The group named a trail after Ember, a winding path through the woods, and Riley walked it sometimes, feeling her in the rustle of leaves. They didn't need to hold her to keep what she'd given them. A reason to fight, to care, to be. The world wasn't fixed, wasn't kind, but it was theirs now. And they were ready to shape it, one animal, one step at a time. Riley looked out at the horizon, the woods alive with possibility, and knew this wasn't an end. It was a beginning, one they'd carry forward, with Ember's spark burning bright inside them. Riley and Ember's story shows that even the loneliest hearts can find their place. If their journey from isolation to purpose touched you, hit the like button. It's a cheer for everyone discovering their strength, just like Riley did. Subscribe to Join Up EU, community that celebrates these moments where stories of connection soar. Share this video with someone who needs a nudge to shine. Let's spread this hope together. What's helped you find your purpose? Share in the comments.